Is Australia becoming right-wing? Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian here, and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. Grab your hashtag recession-proof instant coffee, and let's talk about, well, the rise in support for one nation. Now, this is a Pauline Hanson's political party that has been, well, having a popularity spike as of recent as more people turn towards this party. So I want to put the question to the viewers of my channel. Do you think Australia is becoming more right-wing? Or is this just a reaction to what's happening in the country at the moment? Or has the Overton window shifted so far that people are just naturally realizing, wait a minute, what I thought was normal now is considered radical? So let's start by having a look at this article here. Support for Pauline Hanson's One Nation Party at record high, and the coalition is at a record low. Now, I'm not surprised that the coalition is at a record low. I don't think they're going to be able to go to the election with their current leader. They're going to have to find someone a little bit more, perhaps, shall we say, charismatic and popular with the people. Remember, politics is just a popularity contest in many regards. As core support for the coalition craters, support for Pauline Hanson has hit a record high days after the senator announced her party is getting rebranded. Support for Pauline Hanson is hit the record high, the latest news poll has revealed, days after the Senate announced her One Nation party is getting a rebrand. At the same time, core support for the coalition has cratered to 24%, its lowest primary vote on record since Newspoll first counted primary votes in November 1985, maintaining Labor's two-party preferred advantage to 57 to 43. Now, if you are concerned and not happy with the current Labor government and maybe not supportive of them returning to the next election, this two-party preferred is quite concerning. Look at that, 57 to 43. I don't think they'd have any chance. No matter how bad Albo runs the show moving forward at the moment, I don't think he's going to lose. Susan Ley just doesn't seem like someone who can take the party across to victory unless something exciting happens. Just 1 in 4 Australians are satisfied with opposition leader Susan Ley's performance. The poll of 1,265 voters conducted between Monday and Thursday last week found over half, 58%, said they were dissatisfied and 17% say they were uncommitted. The post-election collapse comes after weeks of damaging internal division within the opposition, triggered by the sacking of Senator Jacinta Price from the Shadow Ministry following controversial comments about Indian migrants. Now, if you look at the comments she puts there, then, well, this is the Overton window. Now, let's have a look at it here. This diagram represents the concept of the Overton window. You've got everything that's inside the window. These are acceptable terms that can be discussed and agreed upon in polite company. To the right, you've got more sensible ideas. They're considered, that's okay, that's not too bad. And this isn't actually right or left, depending on your orientation. Then you've got more popular opinions further out, but you've got more radical opinions to the left and more unthinkable. So the Overton window slowly shifts. So in one direction in this diagram to the right, but in reality, if you would consider it to the left, where those opinions are considered acceptable and other ones are becoming more unthinkable and radical. So this is where certain opinions only a decade ago, look at the Democrats in the United States of America, look at Hillary Clinton, you can see footage of her criticizing same-sex marriage and saying it's not acceptable. But now, well, it's part of their brand and their whole ideology and their party approaches. And, well, that's the shift in the Overton window. So we're seeing this here. The fallout has been compounded by bitter internal division debates over migration, climate change and net zero, leaving the coalition battling a crisis of confidence among its base. Now, if you have criticism, if you want to reduce migration, is the coalition a party you should vote for? I'd argue you shouldn't, looking at their policies. If you're concerned about climate change, if you're concerned about net zero, in which regards? Are you concerned that the world is coming to an end, so we need to tax to save, or make rules or laws? Is the coalition the party you want to vote to? No, you probably go somewhere more interventionist. What about net zero? I'm very concerned about net zero. I'm terrified that it's going to have a tremendously negative impact and effect on the cost of living and quality of life of most Australians. You saw the Nationals now are stepping away from net zero. Maybe they can be the second party. Coalition voters have shifted their support to minor parties, including One Nation, which has attracted its highest ever primary vote of 15%, up from 11% in last month's news poll. The Conservative Party's previous record was 13% in June 1998, so it has really grown. The result echoed that of The Guardian's Essential poll last month, which put One Nation's primary vote at 13%, more than double the 6.4% it recorded in the May election, and ahead of the Greens on 11%. Off the back of Anthony Albanese's successful sit-down with US President Trump last week, ASEAN and APEC meetings, Labor holds 36% of the primary vote. More than half of news poll respondents, 54%, believe the Prime Minister is still the best man for the job. So Hanson changes the party name. The news poll results come after Hanson announced last Tuesday she was dropping her name from her party's official title, changing its name from Pauline Hanson's One Nation to simply One Nation. Now this is a very good move. Because, Pauline has had a lot of challenges with a lot of the people that have been involved in the parties. There's a lot of drama and controversy if you go through it. And I was concerned that when she stepped down, if she wanted to retire and enjoy life, you don't want to be, you kind of want to stop working at one point in your life. I was worried the party would die. In a statement, the Queensland senator who founded the party in 1997 said the rebrand symbolises a renewed focus on the principles that first inspired millions of Australians to join the movement, putting the nation and its people first. The decision marks a defining moment for the movement, reaffirming its identity as the voice for ordinary Australians who value fairness, sovereignty and unity, the statement read. With this announcement, Senator Pauline Hanson is once again reminding the country that One Nation stands stronger than ever. One voice, one people, one nation. The party did not confirm whether the name change when it would go into effect. Okay. The move comes amid rumours. I need to have a drink. I can't read at the moment or talk. Mr. Joyce is said to defect to One Nation, distancing himself from the National Party. Okay, we'll have to see. Over a hardline position on net zero policy. Okay. Well, let's have a look at some of the policies of One Nation. So if you're hearing this and thinking, how could people support this party? If you're just looking at the sound bites from the media and what you hear there and the other. Well, let's look. I asked ChatGPT or Copilot to give me a list. So let's look at the economic and tax. Now, years ago on the channel, we did a live stream where we went through every single Senate candidate and we looked at the policies of every party. And that was quite interesting. We really should do it again. It was definitely worth doing. It's exhausting. It was a multi-hour stream. So their family tax policy allowed joint income tax filing for couples with dependent children splitting income to reduce the tax burden. Okay, I'm going to tick that. Now, I'm not a blanket One Nation supporter, but they've got me on that policy. Okay, so I'll vote for that. What else? Slash government waste, a $90 billion savings plan by cutting departments, reforming NDIS, and withdrawing from costly international agreements. Yeah, I like the idea of that. That seems sensible. Give them a tick there. A GST moratorium, 5-year GST exemption on building materials for new homes up to $1 million to reduce housing costs. Well, I'll give them 2 ticks for that. That's a brilliant policy right there. I think we've even discussed that on this channel, haven't we? I didn't. See, this is the thing. You need to, unless you're really into politics, I don't keep up to date with what all the policies of all the different parties are. Let me know if you do too, guys. That's a great idea. A fuel and alcohol excise cuts. Freeze or abolish the excise on alcohol and halve the fuel excise to ease the cost of living. Okay, now that's, I'm going to give that another 2 ticks. That's a great idea. Okay, I know alcohol is bad, and we like to have these sin taxes to stop people from enjoying a beer or a glass of wine or a drink every now and then. But, I mean, most of us are sensible. I went out for dinner last night. I had a nice Heineken with my steak. I wish it didn't cost as much as it did, because it's just all in taxes. If we lower the fuel excise, those savings will flow through to the entire economy. So that's a great policy. Governance and sovereignty would withdraw from global bodies, access the UN, WHO, WEF, reduce foreign aid and international commitments. I would like to look into that a bit further, but I would argue that we need to focus on our own nation, but there are value to being involved in some of these organizations. So we need to look at it. I would rather we have a voice. I don't want us to send money overseas. So, free speech. Push for a constitutional amendment to enshrine free speech rights. Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. That's a good idea. I don't know how, well, seeing how the Victorian government, which has all of this, you've got a Bill of Rights, how they just threw it out during the pandemic and lockdowns. Yeah, I mean, it's a nice piece of paper. Why not? So, immigration and social cohesion. So, zero net migration. A strong stance on reducing immigration numbers, opposing multicultural programs. So there you go. Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. I think we need to pause. I like the idea of net zero or zero net migration for at least a period of time, until housing becomes more affordable. You're going to have a hard time pushing that, though. You'll have a hard time getting that across the line. Ban foreign ownership, prohibit foreign ownership of residential property, at least temporarily. Okay, I mean, technically, my mother is a foreign resident who's lived here and paid taxes her whole life. So I think that's a bit more of a nuanced approach. But I also understand, when I was looking back at building approvals just a few years ago in Sydney, over 90% of them were for foreign investors. So it's overheating the market. There's evidence of that. So I can understand the reasoning for that argument. So energy and environment. Oppose net zero and climate policies. Reject climate change targets. Abolish the Department of Climate Change. Support nuclear energy. Promote nuclear power as a reliable energy source. Yeah, I agree with both of these ideas. I don't agree with achieving net zero. If we reduce the global CO2 output by 1.5%, do I have the quote here from Finkel? No, I don't. I'll bring it up later. Essentially, will make no difference. So if Australian net CO2 output was nothing, it would make no difference to the world. I would argue the best way for Australia to contribute to fight climate change or global warming is through our R&D and development skills. You have people the problem is a lot of people argue that we should bear the burden for all the resources that we export. So we should be punished for exporting coal to other countries when those countries are allowed to not impose any environmental regulations. If we had people who were serious about reducing our carbon footprint as a nation, you'd be pushing for nuclear. You wouldn't be pushing for renewables. The problem with renewables is, most of them are manufactured overseas. They're in China, and you look at the sulfur dioxide in the atmosphere, you can see how much coal is being burnt to produce that. They're full of precious metals as well. They are not forever products. They are disposable. It's disposable energy production. And then you've got to build capacity to ensure consistent baseload. So you have to have all this additional infrastructure, battery storage, dam storage, redundant capacity, to ensure you provide the same quality of power that we now currently enjoy. And why do you think our power bills are going up? All of this infrastructure is an additional cost that you don't need to bear otherwise. And then you've got the whole other argument about embodied carbon. When you count for the manufacturing, the lifespan of some of this infrastructure, is it actually a net benefit for the environment? What's the lifespan of this infrastructure? How long does it have to stay alive? What efficiency, output ratios do the wind farms need to produce in order to get a net positive over the lifespan? So, and then we also argue, if we're exporting our coal overseas, what happens if Australia stopped exporting our coal, as some people are calling for in this country, which is just insane. And then you have, it's not like it's going to stop the demand for this product. Other countries will be exporting it. What if you have increased sulfur dioxide and other pollutants and particulate matter because they're burning lower quality coal to generate that power? So are we getting the environmental benefit for avoiding that by exporting our product? It's much more complicated than the sound bites. There's a whole lot here into it. And in the construction industry, at least in architecture, we learn a lot about this. So that's where my skepticism of a lot of these arguments came forward. When I saw how easy it is to jerry-rig the numbers for energy performance on dwellings, I got quite, frustrated. So infrastructure and jobs. Water projects, build new dams, ban foreign ownership of water rights. I agree with that. I agree with both those policies. Water shouldn't be foreign owned ever, honestly. There's no reason it should, or water rights shouldn't be foreign owned. We need to keep those Australian citizens should own that one way or another. Dams, we need more dams. We don't have enough. I've got videos on this channel looking at dams, looking at the low growth. If you compare it to our population growth, we're screwed. Australian jobs first, expand apprenticeship programs and prioritize local employment. Yeah, who doesn't want more education and more local employment? The problem is it's a free market, so it's going to cost more, and a lot of people won't pay it. So there we go. They're the one nation policies there. So let's have a bit of a reflection and chat about this. So it might be worth looking at some of the other parties as well, and having a bit of a discussion to see what their policies are. But from what we've seen here from One Nation, do you think any of these policies are excessive or extreme? Or let's look at the Overton window. What do you think? You've got, are they acceptable, radical, unthinkable, or sensible or popular? Their family tax policy. What would we call that? I'd say, wait, we're not. There we go. Okay, we'll go here, Their family tax policy. I'd say that's acceptable. It's sensible. It should be popular. / government waste. I would argue that's an acceptable and sensible policy, but a whole lot of nutters would think that's radical. GST moratorium, 5-year exemption on building material. I think that would be a brilliant idea. The problem is, I question the challenges One Nation have of getting their policies out there. Well, because of the media and just the perception that they're a right-wing party by a lot of people. Abolish the fuel and alcohol excise cuts. Or it'd be good to abolish it. That's probably more libertarian. But the fuel and excise cuts, these seem like sensible, popular opinions. So what it's worth doing is maybe going through each of these policies and looking at them, if they're acceptable, sensible, or popular. Let me know in the chat, guys, if you'd be interested, or leave a comment if you'd be interested in doing it we'll probably do it as a live stream, like the old days. We'll get some good old rum, get a few beers, and go through a whole lot of different policies. Anyway, take care. Let me know your opinions on this. Personally, I think this is a good idea. I think a lot of people are realizing, wait a minute, these big two parties aren't providing the solutions I want, so I need to look elsewhere, and they're using their preference voting to get the action they want. And you've got some good people in One Nation that, not just Pauline, they can get there and speak their ideas. What do you reckon? I'll see you next time.